is the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday and welcome in to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS preview show. I am James Grande. I am riding solo for today's two-game breakdown as our man John Impemba, salute to you, John, celebrates his one-year wedding anniversary. It was a fun time last year at the wedding, so salute to John and his wife for celebrating their anniversary. So I am flying solo today. Again, two games on the Tuesday slate. We have Pacers at Knicks, Minnesota in Denver. Both series knotted up 2-2, and both series were not. They were 2-0 series, and I think a lot of people figured were closer to over than not. But both the Indiana Pacers and Denver Nuggets have responded in big ways, respectively, in their series. In the Indiana New York game, we have a 217 and a half, open to 217 and a half, anywhere between 217 and 216 and a half currently. Knicks 2.5 point favorites at home. So we'll start the breakdown going game by game, and we'll start on the Pacer side of things. Obviously, we've seen the Pacers respond after two really tough games in New York. They were great at home. I guess the question is like what you view this Pacers team on the road, because obviously they've looked amazing in Indiana. Can they continue to respond that way at on the road? The Knicks looked really tired in Game 4, and obviously that's going to be probably one of the biggest talking points the rest of this series. Do the Knicks just have enough bodies to make it through and to win two of the final three games? Fortunately for the Knicks and unfortunately for the Pacers, if this does go seven, that means there's two more games in Madison Square Garden. We've seen what that arena has looked like this whole entire postseason. Um, the Knicks have been amazing in their home arena. So let's start on the Indiana side. Tyrese Halliburton, 8,700, has looked very good offensively in the last three games. He said it after game one. He did not look good. He took 6 shots. He had to be more aggressive, and he has been. And you only saw the 20 minutes and 15 shots because they won by a gazillion in game number 4. So look for Halliburton to get back up to like the 35 plus minute mark. The 3-point ball was a up and down season for Halliburton. I mean, he started the year white hot from three, obviously went through some mental side of things after the All-Star break and couldn't make any threes. And now it looks like he's all the way back. So definitely can get to Halliburton 8,700. I think Pascal Siakam has looked fine over the last two games. Sans OG Anunoby defense, I mean, again, was fine during the 22 minutes he was on the floor, but he was just in there for 22 minutes because they were up by so much. And in the game prior, he was in foul trouble, but he did look great without OG guarding him. 9 for 14. He has the one thing that I will say: Siakam is really struggling from the free throw line right now. So if he continues to play the way he does, which is constant assault at the basket, uh, getting him on the free throw line isn't a bad thing for the Knicks. But I do like $7,500 for Pascal Siakam here. No OG defense, as I mentioned. Miles Turner has responded after a bad game two. Was great in game three. Was on his way to having another big game in game four. Well over a fantasy point per minute in that one. But just the 26 minutes. So definitely can get to Turner here. I like the price increase on TJ McConnell, 5,100. He broke the slate. And obviously, when you look at what's happening with the Pacers this postseason, you look at all their rates. You look at usage rates. You look at fantasy points per minute. During the postseason, TJ McConnell is first or second in both those categories. First in usage, second in fantasy points per minute. So if you want to get to TJ McConnell, I mean, look at the 4 of the last 5 games. He's gone for 29 plus fantasy points. 2 of his last 3 in this series alone, he's doubled. And it's been a very hot topic on whether in these competitive games he should have been taken off the floor in games 1 and 2 to begin with, late in games. So game 3, obviously, Rick Carlin made the right decision. Nembhard hits the 3, and the rest is history. But he was the arguably the best player on the floor in game 4 again. So definitely okay getting to McConnell at 5,100. He'll be popular. Neesmith, only 24 minutes again because the blowout nature. 12 rebounds is definitely an anomaly. But he has been rebounding the ball well, 6+ rebounds in 3 of 4. We know he can space the floor. Not necessarily shooting the ball all too well right now, just 26% in this series. But he shot 40% from three during the regular season. So they also made the adjustment of putting Neesmith on Jalen Brunson. So as long as he does stay out of foul trouble, that's obviously a concern in New York, right? Aaron Neesmith, we know in New York, we know where Rick Carlisle complained about all those calls, sent it into the league. Well, Aaron Eastman's going to be guarding Jalen Brunson. So if you think he can stay out of foul trouble, shooting guard small forward under 5K with nearly 40-minute upside is definitely viable. Um, Andrew Nembhard, also someone who should play somewhere around 30 minutes. And we saw last year's against Milwaukee. I mean, there was upwards of 40 upside in terms of minutes. So can definitely get to Nembhard 46. Obi Toppin's been great, man. They're not going to extend him more than 18 to 20 minutes. I mean, even in the blowout, he only gets 18 minutes. But he was one of the spark plugs in that first quarter that really set the table early and got the Pacers out to a 20+ point lead in the first quarter. 20 fantasy points in basically every game this postseason. So obviously, the game 3 was a bad one, and we can move on from that. But Toppin's been great. Was comfortable in Madison Square Garden. Obviously, used to play for the Knicks, and he's from New York. So, or yeah, from New York. So, definitely can get the top in 42. Ben Shepherd, he's a punt. He's playing regardless of the blowout. I mean, he's playing 16 to 20 minutes. If you want to get to Ben Shepherd, if he's making shots, he's fine. Isaiah Jackson obviously benefited from the blowout last time out, but he is operating as the backup center right now. We're gonna see him in 13, probably 15 minutes. I think that's like a safe projection for him. He is a good fantasy point per minute guy. If you want to punt with Isaiah Jackson, by all means, but you can't really get to anything else. So let's go over to the Knicks side again. They're 2.5 point favorites. They are the team that's incredibly shorthanded, and I mean incredibly shorthanded. Obviously, OG Anunoby's already been ruled out. We know Mitchell Robinson, Bojan Bogdanovic, Julius Randle, Dwayne Washington, Charlie Brown. They're all out. The Knicks are going to play 7.5 players. Jericho Sims got the 15 minutes is a little deceptive. He played one shift in game 3, would have probably only played one shift in game 4 if not for the blowout. So they'll play like 7.5 players. We'll get Brunson, Hart, DiVincenzo, Hartenstein, and Precious Achua in the starting lineup in all likelihood. We did see, and maybe this is something to monitor, we did see Deuce McBride start the second half of that game. So he also closed. So, Tibbs being Tibbs, but I guess that's something that probably should monitor here. If I guess that opens the window to getting McBride into the starting lineup. Indiana's playing smaller, right? I mean, they're playing Nembhard and Halliburton, essentially 2 point guards. Not that Halliburton's small, he's 6'6", but they're essentially playing 2 point guards on the floor. So the Knicks could shake it up and go McBride. We know McBride's been good in the Garden, and he's also very loved in the by Knicks fans. So I guess that's the only difference that could be. We know these top 4: Brunson, Hart, DiVincenzo, Hartenstein, and then we'll see about the fifth starter. But let's start off with Brunson. Obviously, 2 bad games in a row. Could it be? Could it be the foot? Very well could it. It could. Could it be the minutes? That could also be contributing. It could be a culmination of both those things, plus not getting as many calls as obviously, 14 free throws in game 1. Didn't even combine that in games 2 and 3, and then didn't even really play that much in game 4. So I like Jalen Brunson in tournaments. If you do think the Knicks have anything left in the tank, and I guess that's the question you got to ask yourself: do the Knicks have anything in the tank? Because I guess technically, 31 minutes for Brunson. I think Josh Hart played 24 minutes. 24 minutes for Hart. That's basically getting a day off for Josh Hart, right? I mean, so I'm good getting to any of these guys. It's just your thoughts on the team. This is obviously an aberration with what we've seen from Josh Hart. He's basically 5x every single one of these categories throughout the playoffs. So I'm good getting to all these Knicks again. Again, there's 7 guys that are going to play. Any of the top 4, even though DiVincenzo's price is obviously up to 7K, he had been shooting lights out prior to game 4. Hartenstein, I'm definitely okay going back to the well. Again, just kind of throwing game 3 out the window and everything that was good there, or bad there, rather. I guess the only questions we really have with the Knicks are, one, who starts between Achua and McBride? Achua obviously has the leg up since he started the previous 2 games. And he played obviously 28 minutes on the stretch of game 2. So I would say Achua has the leg up, but I do think it was interesting to see Deuce McBride start the second half over Precious Achua while Indiana's playing small. I like Deuce McBride actually quite a bit. I liked him in game 4, regardless of the blowout. Obviously, hindsight, he had a big game, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying, I think there's some correlation between him and Pascal Siakam, and what I mean by that is, if Siakam's cooking Achua, Precious Achua is not going to be on the floor for very long, and it's going to be Josh Hart on Pascal Siakam, which is obviously a size mismatch for Pascal, but uh, Precious, doesn't really provide anything on the offensive side of the ball. And with Indiana kind of going smaller, Deuce just offers more. So I like Deuce McBride 4K, and we're going to get a pretty popular Alec Burks again. He's been very good off the Knicks bench in back-to-back games. And if there's anything that we know about Alec Burks, anything other than it has taken him 7 injuries for him to enter this rotation, he's a bucket. He is a bucket getter. I mean, in 23 and 21 minutes, respectively, 20 and 14 points in the last 2 games, 15 free throw attempts. He's 4 for 10 from 3 over that span. So we're going to get a pretty popular Alec Burks. And I can't say I blame anyone for getting there at 3,900. So if you want to get to Alec Burks, I think the Knicks are probably 6 playable. I'm excluding Precious because even in these games where he's been extended, I mean, we just really haven't gotten a lot for a guy 4,300. So I would play this 6 of the 7 rotation pieces for the Knicks outside of Precious. And so let's move on to the late game, Minnesota Denver. This has turned into the best series in the playoffs. I think a lot of people that I listen to are under the impression that the winner of this series is going to win the finals or at least represent the Western Conference. They do look like the creme de la creme, obviously, with all the injury concerns to Luka Doncic right now. Is OKC too young? Like, by the time some of you listen to this, we'll even know what happens in that game 4. I'm recording before that game tips off. But yeah, Minnesota Denver has been incredible. Obviously, the first 2 games of Minnesota in Denver, just blowing them out of the water, and then Denver responding like champions do. Jamal Murray getting a magic 3 days of rest, and now suddenly, he's Jamal Murray again. Jamal Murray's Murraying. So yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing first 4 games of that series. So let's get into this breakdown. The total in that game opened at 207. It's currently been bet down 1.5 to 205.5. Denver giving 4.5 points at home. So let's start on the Minnesota side. Obviously, yeah. Anthony Edwards said he came out flat for game 3. And you know what? Anthony Edwards, salute to you, sir, because it didn't look too flat in game 4. He definitely had more energy, although he did look tired in the late in the fourth quarter. That's what happens when you play 45 of 48 minutes. He was amazing, and his price did not move a single dollar. So, there's a couple things to factor in here. One, this is in Denver. He had a big game 1 in Denver, obviously 43 points. So we're not overly concerned with Edwards getting tired, but it is worth mentioning that in game 4 he did look tired at the end of the game, and now we have the elevation shift to Denver. So I love Anthony Edwards, obviously 9,200. He'll be one of the more popular plays of the slate, but just keeping in mind, when you looked at Edwards late in that game. He was tired. How does the elevation change affect him in this one? Shouldn't be enough to really matter. If you want to get to Anthony Edwards, by all means, he's um, you know a generational talent. So by all means, get to Edwards. I think Karl Anthony Towns. I don't want to call him like the difference maker here for Minnesota, but you know, in the two games that they won, he was really good offensively, and in the two games they lost, he just wasn't. 5 for 18. I think he needs to do a little less of like, yo, Ant, you just got yours. Now I'm gonna get mine type of stuff because that's just not how that should work. Um, there should be more flow. But I do think Carl Anthony Towns is a just he is an X factor and 6,900 is too cheap. I mean, even on a night where he goes 5 for 18, 18 shots, being great, by the way, for us DFS players, he still squeaks out 36 fantasy points for north of 5x. I mean, if Karl Anthony Towns makes three more shots, I mean, you're talking about a guy who is in every single winning lineup. I mean, obviously, I cashed with Karl Anthony Towns having 38 minutes, but in any situation that Karl Anthony Towns makes a couple more shots, he breaks the slate at $6,900. So I'll definitely have a lot of exposure there. Rudy Gobert is whatever as a last piece in. I don't think there's a lot of desire here to get to Gobert. He is just not involved offensively in really any capacity here. So, and plus, if he's guarding Jokic, he's getting switched on to Jokic a lot and being torched. So, I mean, 6,300 is a good price, but just not a lot of interest. Has not had a ton of success in this series thus far. So, I'm fine with Gobert as like kind of a secondary play. Mike Conley's super safe, man. I mean, he continues to just be really steady outside of that game two blowout where he just wasn't needed. But I love to see in back to back series in games that they need to extend Mike Conley. Mike Conley's been extended 34 minutes twice in the Phoenix series, 34 minutes in game four. And he's been great. Again, I mean, 6+ assists and all but one playoff game so far. The double digit points have been great, and he's been making his three. So 5,700 for Mike Conley feels really, really good. And then we start talking about like Naz Reid has a really good ceiling. Could they extend him here after kind of having so much success with Naz Reid on the floor a bunch in games one and two? You would have to think that he's live to play mid 20s minutes here, especially with the switching that Denver is getting Gobert in, where now Gobert's not the help defender anymore, and he's directly guarding Jokic. Like that's what Denver wants because Gobert roaming around the rim versus guarding someone 1-on-1 are two different things. Rudy Gobert, the rim protector, is the best in the NBA. Rudy Gobert, the 1-on-1 defender, that leads to Aaron Gordon big nights, and that leads to Jamal Murray big nights and stuff. So I could see Naz Reid getting extended here just based on Minnesota's necessity and having him on the floor for a little bit more. JD McDaniels was what JD McDaniels kind of has been in this series and a lot of this year. He has random big games offensively, and other than that, it's just kind of he's a guy who's on the floor a lot. So you're like, well, I can talk myself into getting some JD McDaniels because he's on the floor a lot. And that's really where my interest stops. He's going to play big minutes. There are games that he makes a bunch of shots and is aggressive offensively. There's also games where he picks up 4 and 5 fouls, and you play Jaden McDaniels for the minutes, and now he's not even getting them. So he is really a secondary play. Same thing with NAW. I didn't think this was a great series for him. Obviously, he was great in game two. I still kind of feel the same way. He's obviously a great defender, and in the games that he's made shots this postseason he's been great. And there's been a bunch of them that he has, but only one so far through 4 games in this series. I'm gonna stay away from NAW and anything but tournaments. Kyle Anderson, his minutes might just go away. I don't even know if Kyle Anderson plays in game five. Honestly, I think they're gonna keep it extremely tight, just play their top 7 guys and extend probably Naz Reid a little bit more. Maybe you see like the Anderson minutes go to like Monty Morris a little bit. We've seen Monty Morris get time in a lot in the Phoenix series, and then a little bit in garbage time in the series. So I think Anderson's minutes go away, but I do have a lot of interest in Minnesota. Edwards and Towns at the top with Conley. Now it's in tournaments. Same thing with Gobert. And let's finish this things off with Denver. Obviously, they're home favorites here. Boy, have things shifted in this series. Just maybe based on a couple extra days for Jamal Murray to get healthy, right? And Jokic just to usually we don't get this Jokic unless you really need it, and Denver really needed it. In the first half, I don't think any of the shots that he made even hit the rim. I think they were just straight dropping through the net, not even touching the rim. But if that's the version of Jokic we're going to get, he's the top spend up of the slate, despite being the most expensive play of the slate. Gone for 60 in back-to-back games, even though he's going up against the defending and four-time defensive player of the year, Enrico Bear and company. But Jokic has been amazing in these last two games, and obviously back at home, I'm definitely interested in Jokic at 11-3. And if for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable getting the Jokic, dude, this last two-game version of Jamal Murray at $7,600 is too cheap, especially if we're gonna get the peripheral stats that we've continued to get. The minutes have been great. The calf looks better than it has. Obviously, again, they had a massive break, and I don't know how that break really helped him so much, but it did. It flat out did, and he's looked like a different player in these last two games. Even making threes again. So I love Jamal Murray at 76. They're doing a subtle thing. They're doing is Jaden McDaniels picking Murray up from the time the ball is brought up to the time they get to the other side of the court. They've started using like Aaron Gordon to bring the ball up and Jokic. Like they're letting Murray just because they can get in their Jokic Murray action whenever they want. Um, so instead of him being hounded all the way up and down the floor, a lot of the time you'll see Aaron Gordon bring the ball up. You'll see KCP sometimes, Christian Brown, whoever's on the floor. And I do like that adjustment from head coach Michael Malone, just because you're going to get into your offense with Jamal Murray because Jokic is such a good screener and all that stuff. So it has helped Murray and free him up a little bit. So $7,600. I love the price for Jamal Murray. Going to go back to the well at home, where he's going to be serenaded with cheers and after being booed off the floor in Minnesota. Michael Porter's had a tough go the last couple games. Obviously, he was great in Game 3. They didn't really need him to be extended. Plus, he was dealing with foul trouble that entire game. Game 4, it was just not his night. And Justin Holiday played great. Christian Brown played great, and they played Brown over Porter down the stretch of that game. So I definitely am okay with Porter in tournaments. Not as sold as I was last series. Aaron Gordon, he's been very consistent this postseason. And we know Aaron Gordon has a very high ceiling. I mean, he was a great player in Orlando that got traded to Denver, and his role completely shifted from, top of the head of the spear on one team to on some nights fourth and fifth offensive option. So I'm definitely interested in getting to some Aaron Gordon here. Um, I think he'll come in a little higher owned than he probably should be. It's hard to replicate 11 for 12 with the 3 blocks and steals and 13 combined rebounds and assists. And Aaron Gordon's been shooting the lights out of the ball from 3, by the way. This is a guy shot 30% from 3. He's shooting almost 70% in the series from 3. So obviously there's some things that, there's regression coming for Aaron Gordon, but as long as they keep getting Gobert switched on to Jokic, like there is exploitations for Gordon in this spot. KCP last piece in hasn't been great this series. I do think he's hurt. The abdomen. I know he's not checking in with the injury report and stuff, but there is the abdomen issue that he's been on the injury report for all but this game. So keep that in mind. I believe I don't even think we have the injury report yet. But he, yeah, I mean, again, I don't think he's fully healthy, and that's led to like really good minutes from Christian Brown the last 2 games. And Michael Malone talked about how good he's been defensively. So something to keep in mind if he's going to be, talked about in that light, there are chances if KCP's not playing well or hurt, or Michael Porter's not playing well defensively, they go to Christian Brown and extend him in the fourth quarter, 25 minutes, and I believe, without looking, and I'll pull up add more funds now, and we're gonna look at the Denver rotation. I believe he played I want to say he played the whole fourth. Yeah, he played the final like 16, almost 16 minutes of this game. So I think that's a very interesting and telling thing. And if I'm not, he might have even done that the game prior to. It was a blowout. But he did check back in. Kinda. No, he checked in for garbage time. Okay. So, anyways, Christian Brown is an interesting punt if you think there's a chance that he closes over Michael Porter if Michael Porter continues to struggle, or KCP. Justin Holiday has been their best player off the bench. Does that really warrant much fantasy attention? I mean, if you get the 18 fantasy points, I don't think it's terrible at 3,200. Um, but he's going to play 19 minutes if the shot's falling. If the shot's not, I mean, he's 16 minutes, quick hook. It's game five. I don't know how many minutes their bench plays. Reggie Jackson's only played 8, 9 minutes because Jamal Murray's looked so good. So it's really Jokic, Murray at the top. Porter, I would probably put Gordon ahead of Porter right now. $300 cheaper, has been more successful in this series throughout. And then Christian Brown, KCP last pieces in, I think would probably be how I would end my Denver exposure. I'm not gonna put the lineup, but I'll put together like a core. And this is just like an early look core. I do think um, I'm gonna go with Miles McBride as one of my core plays here. I do think there's a chance that he ends up starting after seeing him start that second half and playing really well in that game. And even if he doesn't, he's gonna be their primary guy off the bench. And if you don't want to use McBride, use Alec Burks, who's a higher usage player. I'm going to, in this particular build, go Towns, Jamal Murray instead of Jokic, because I'm also I'm gonna go back to Jalen Brunson. So that's my early core. Again, things could change. I mean, we're 12 hours, 24 hours from the slate starting. So just keep that in mind. If you want to go instead of Brunson, I think a lot of people will go that direction, just not knowing how Brunson's foot's doing. And you just go Ant. You can even take Towns out of that equation too, and save yourself some dollars there. So that's an early look at things. The breakdown will be up on fantasyalarm.com tomorrow. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Subscribe over at fantasyalarm.com for the annual package. You get discounted right now for the first month. I will have the write up, like I always do, up on fantasyalarm.com sometime tomorrow afternoon. We appreciate your guys' support very, very much. Each and every night, you guys show out. Each and every day, you guys show out with the love for the podcast. So I don't believe we will be live for the Wednesday slate. I believe there's only one game. So we'll probably be back for no, Wednesday we're good. Thursday there's only one, and then Friday, if Boston Cleveland needs to go to a game 6, then we will be recording for that. So definitely Wednesday for the game 5s of Cleveland, Boston, Dallas, Oklahoma City. Nothing on for Thursday slate, and then potentially Friday if there's a game 6 in Boston, Cleveland. And if there's not, we'll catch you guys next week for another edition of the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS preview show. Salute to you guys. Salute to the family. I am out. Peace.